I too have been up here multiple times to fight for my rights as a gun owner. I'm obviously opposed to 6656 on its own merit. It's conceptually flawed. It suggests or presupposes that gun owners pose a greater risk to themselves and others, and there's no factual basis for that whatsoever. The grand sum total of the number of bills that have been presented against gun owners in the last couple months rises to such a level of absurdity that if the Twilight Zone was still in production today, Rod Serling would be smoking a cigarette right outside that door. The Second Amendment is one sentence long. One sentence, 27 words. And for decades now, we've listened to so-called constitutional scholars, intellectuals, politicians, rip it apart, dismantle it, disassemble it. By the way, this is not a prop, this is the U.S. Constitution. How many ways can we dissect one sentence and try to reinvent it for political gain? The 13th Amendment abolishes slavery. It is roughly the same length as this short Second Amendment. Has anyone in this room ever questioned the meaning or intent of the 13th Amendment? No. The 13th Amendment clearly stated, no man, woman, or child will ever be a slave to anyone else in this country or its territories. Very clear. But yet the 13th Amendment never made any reference to people. So how on earth could we have known what they were talking about? I suppose they just thought that we could rely on our own common sense and understand what they meant. The words "shall not be infringed" mean exactly what they say. The Second Amendment makes no reference to the type of arms. That's true. But it offers no limitations either. Shall not be infringed was designed as a protection, a barrier between the fallacies of government and the freedoms of the people. Acting against the Second Amendment and those who exercise their rights is not courageous. It doesn't take political fortitude because we are honest, law-abiding people. It takes courage to stand on constitutional principle. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your...
I'd like to raise the following concerns that the industry has with House Bill 6656. First off, it ignores the mandating insurance for gun ownership, actually ignores the fundamental purpose of insurance, and that's to provide coverage for fortuitous or accidental events. We do not and will not provide coverage for intentional acts, criminal acts, or willful acts. Also, if you own a home, as Senator Fiscal was pointing out earlier, you own a home, you have renters, you already have coverage for your accidental use of ownership for injuries that are caused if they're accidental. We are aware of no product on the market, in the standard market, that provides a coverage slot for in this bill. The NRA does have some products that it provides. They do not provide coverage for intentional acts. The self-insurance policy does not provide coverage for criminal acts unless the charges are dropped or there's an acquittal. So even what they're seeking here is not even, from my understanding of the NRA products today, and I remember I don't know what they are, but from what I've read, they won't even suffice. If a mandatory coverage was provided or made required for all gun ownership, you'd actually end up probably doing more harm to the liability landscape in Connecticut. You would have unintended consequences of lack of coverage. I would suspect that homeowners insurance would probably exclude any exposure then for gun ownership, which, and for right now, from what I can tell from a quick survey of our members, what we've covered in loss is directly covered losses under the liability portion for homeowners. We don't ask about it, because it's been less than 0.5%. The vast majority of claims that we pay do not fall within this category. That's why we don't even underwrite or ask about it, because covered losses. Accidental losses are not incidental to gun ownership exposed to the liability industry. So therefore, we would probably exclude that out. So now someone who would be required to get this coverage might get it, it might lapse. Now where right now, if something accidental happens, they'd have coverage, well, if they let it lapse, now there'd be no coverage and there'd be nothing out there. Also, because it does not exist on the market, it would have the timeline to have something developed. A quick wrap up. It's to develop the product if there's any appetite for it. It's not something we tend to get into, especially intentional coverage. You'd be looking at the government to have to provide coverage, or at least an assigned risk pool for the higher risk, because we won't take them.
Thank you for your testimony. I mean, couldn't you argue that the homeowner liability is the marketplace? I mean, they're already underwriting gun owners for negligence.
For negligence, but not for what this bill requires.
Okay. And in terms of self-defense, I mean, I would say there's a market. I mean, there's police liability. There's, I mean, that would cover. I mean, there's a marketplace for it out there. I mean, that's what municipalities have on their police departments in the event of an accidental shooting, correct?
Self-defense, I understand it's covered differently by different policies. The only one that is a pure self-defense policy, like this required, is offered by the NRA. As far as then what's covered in the homeowners, it's very specific, and it's you have to look at the case of each as they happen.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Representative Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sue. Just to confirm what you said in your testimony, which was that less than 1/2 of 1%, was it?
That's
claims are attributed to accidental use of a firearm. So there's very, very little instance of this happening whatsoever. And you don't foresee a need to have any separate product created to ascribe to people that don't have a homeowner's or tenant's policy already.
We don't have the data to do it. I mean, we certainly, we create policies when there's data and numbers that we can actually underwrite and rate. Everything's very statistic driven by our industry. We don't have the data to do it. So if there was a forced product, if someone wants to go out and develop it, might, but there's no data right now.
Understood. So the vast number of supposed gun deaths that we have, very few of them fall into that category that this insurance would affect.
Under the negligence,
Okay.
from what our
That was my
our industry
expectation,
here.
but good to hear that from somebody in the industry. Thank you.